You ready?
Yeah, I'm going to sit in the chair and then I'll move. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming to this staged reading of the play Stoker's Guest. In honor of the 125th anniversary of the publication of Dracula, 1897, I've put this play together, and this is a reading with the possibility of a full production later. This play won a New York State Council for the Arts Award, and it has to be staged at some point during this year. The theater that was going to do the play has gone out of business. And when Linda called me and asked if they could do my play Picture Perfect, I mentioned that, you know, I've got this other play, I've got to find some place to have it done or I have to give back the award. And so she said, well, you know, we'll think about it, just let me read it. I said, okay. So I'm grateful to Western Door Playhouse, to Linda and the cast for agreeing to do this. Give you a smidgen of background information. Bram Stoker got the idea for Dracula when he was on holiday in the North Sea town of Whitby in the summer of 1890. Now, when the book was published, the first chapter was cut out to shorten the book a bit. And if you're curious, Dracula is 165,000 words long, which is double the length of the average book today. The average book today is somewhere around 80 to 90,000. And the part that was cut out after his death, his wife published in a collection of his stories. It was called Dracula's Guest. Well, I'm imagining how Stoker got the idea for Dracula while he was on this holiday. Thus the title, Stoker's Guest. Language advisory, there are a couple of very colorful words, not many, but so don't be shocked at that. I think that you may enjoy the play, but if you don't, you don't. But there are things that you might want to know about later, about Dracula, how it came to be, and some of the references in the play. There's a sheet over there that you can pick up at the end, because if you get it now, it gives you all the surprises, and you don't want to do that. No, surprise. Writers love surprise, trust me. It warms the cockles of our hearts when people go, so, anyway, so thank you for coming. This is free, but if you would like to make a donation, it will go to the restroom renovation fund for this building. And so, and
Western Door Playhouse.
And Western Door Playhouse. And I think there's going to be a 50-50 raffle at intermission.
Yes. Did anybody buy 50-50 tickets?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
yes,
so,
okay,
all right. So, thank you, and welcome to Stoker's Guest.
Okay.
Center stage. Wearing a distinctive frock coat, he paced tightly, gestures towards the audience as if the individual to whom he is speaking.
The tour has left Miss Terry exhausted. Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham and Sheffield were unremarkable, but Glasgow, Dundee and Edinburgh, perhaps it's best not to do a two-person rendition of the Scottish play in Scotland. Still, the artist upon the stage apprehends the fullness of his accomplishment when he sees upon the faces of those in attendance pure understanding. Nevertheless, we are all in need of a rest. A few weeks' holiday ought to prove restorative. Come autumn, then Ravenswood. For you, dear Stoker, I suggest a seaside town in Yorkshire to tear you away from books and ledgers and schedules. Bracing sea air, much to see, countless paths to walk. Whitby is the perfect place for your brain to shed its burdensome attachment to details.
Blackout. We hear sounds of seabirds, water, crowd noises, strains of period music. Lights rise on a sitting room, fireplace, window, tea table, sofa, chair, bookcase, writing desk with chair. Maggie enters, followed by Bram Stoker with a valise.
And the sitting room, sir?
For once in his life, the governor was wrong.
Sir?
My friend and employer, Mr. Irving, he said the accommodations here were merely adequate. Well, this is much more than adequate, and will be more than enough when my wife and son join me.
Sets down the valise and moves towards the window to look out. He's captivated with the view.
Your family is coming, sir?
In a week or two. I expect to wire a letter by early next week to tell me precisely when. Unless I determine these environs are unsuitable for our holiday, in which case I shall wire her. The view of the sea is extraordinary.
'Tis, sir.
Are there other guests on holiday here?
In the rooms above, a gentleman and his man. In the rooms next door, Mrs. Smith and her daughter, and their friend, Miss Stokes.
Stokes next to Stoker. Pay me no mind as I prattle. Maggie, is it?
Aye, sir.
Oh, this is a long way from where you started, isn't it, Maggie? Clontarf born I am, and I have an ear for home.
Kilbrack, sir. I did catch in your voice a touch of comfort. More folk are born in Ireland than die there, my mam used to say.
Indeed. I'm used to hearing the echoes of the tongue on the streets of London. I'm pleased to find them here as well.
Oh, would I like to see London, sir? My cousin Lucy went there last year and never came back.
Really? Where does she live in London?
I don't know, but she must be busy, because she never writes. Life there must be glorious.
As glorious as it can be, with 4 million souls and all the smoke and stink and noise they produce.
But you be living in London, sir,
My work took me there.
because in Dublin you couldn't be doing it.
Dublin is a wonderful city in its own right, is it not? Most appreciative of the governor.
I've been to Dublin, but I've only read about London. So much I can near see it. Old buildings and the Thames, the Tower, the Palace, factories, fine houses. Books made it all sound so grand.
Sometimes grander on the page than to the eye. So you enjoy reading, then?
Hi, sir. My teacher in Kilbrack was a great lover of tales and shared many a book with me.
My mother was once such as she, and told me all kinds of stories when I was young and sickly. We appear to share a good fortune as well as a good home.
And the rest? Sure, my teacher was after wanting me to take her place someday.
Then I am doubly impressed. Why are you not teaching there now?
You can't have it always when you're skint and alone. But I'm still stuck on books. This flat here has more than others. If I finish my cleaning early, I sit sometimes by that window and read for a bit.
And doubtless dream of London, where clever girls like you and your cousin can still find opportunities in offices as well as schools. So what brought you to Whitby?
Mrs. V was my mam's cousin. Like sisters they were.
Then she has been in England for some time. Her voice lacks that certain music.
When she was just a muppet, her father found work in Manchester, in a factory.
Few enough of those in Dublin.
She never came home again, but she and Mam did regular write letters to each other. She married Mr. B, who brought her here when his kinfolk left in this house. And then came Lucy.
When did you come?
6 years ago, after Mam died. Dad was already gone. My brothers were after with their own families.
And Mrs. Vasey offered you work.
Aye, sir, for man's sake. And because she was needing help here, with Mr. V fresh in the ground himself. The missus gave me clothes and a bed to share with Lucy, in a nicer room than the other girls who work here. Been very kind to me, she has.
I'm sure she has. Now, I expect she keeps a traditional guest house with a traditional schedule. Still, I need to know what she expects and when. I imagine it would not do to rankle her.
Not on at all to chance her temper. Breakfast at 9 bells, dinner at 2 for them that want it, tea at 5, supper at 8. She likes it if you tell her which meals you'll be wanting each day.
Of course, waste not.
The rooms are tidied between 10 and 3, when most guests are out for the day.
Well, then I shall make a point of being out long enough for you to read an extra chapter or two. So, apart from drinking in public houses, what ought I be doing with my mornings and afternoons?
Walking, when the weather is for it. But even when it's warm here, there's wind off the water where the river meets the sea. Sometimes it's bucketing so hard, you'll be wanting a mackintosh.
I have one.
On this side of the river is the great whalebone arch. That's a sight in the sun. If you walk down the bridge, and then along the other side, you can make your way back up to the abbey, or what remains of it. But you might want to rest a bit before taking in the steps.
The steps?
The steps to the Church of St. Mary, on the way to the abbey ruins. Almost 200 steps, they say. With all that walking, you might want to get some wind back in your chest before you start your climbing. A good way to take in Whitby, the steps are. Go slow, stop and look out at the houses, their red roofs. High enough up you can see the harbor, the boats, the sea walls, the lighthouses, and where the shipwreck happened some year ago. In the churchyard, you can sit on a bench and look about all the stones. Quite old, most of them. Sometimes on Sunday, I like to look at the places between the years on those stones and wonder what stories they could tell.
Do you ever look at them and imagine the stories they would tell?
That'd be chancing it nothing, Mom used to say when I made things up.
No, child. Making up stories is never nothing. They tell us about ourselves, how to think, how to feel, how to understand what happens in life. A girl such as yourself, with a head on her and a love of such, could find a place in a world of story.
More like make a show of myself.
Nonsense! I live in the world of story.
You do.
I do. It's quite delightful there. The governor, Mr. Irving?
Sir?
My employer, I mentioned him earlier.
Oh,
The governor manages the Lyceum, the best theatre in London.
now you're messing around.
No, Mr. Irving is Henry Irving, the actor.
Never heard of him.
A great actor, a great, great man. Oh, he stayed in this very house, he said. But that was long ago, before your time. You see, our company puts on plays, stories by Shakespeare and other writers. Oftentimes, Mr. Irving takes the lead part himself. He is a wonder to see marching about in the limelight, like to steal your breath.
Yourself must be quite something, with that voice and that beard.
Alas, I'm scarcely one to strut and fret at his hour upon the stage. I'm just the business manager.
Oh,
But I do live in the world of story, because I also write books.
you write books?
I do?
Any I could have read?
I would be most surprised if you'd read The Duties of Clerks of Petty Sessions in Ireland.
Sir?
A technical manual for the civil service.
Oh,
A long time ago, however, before you came to Whitby, I wrote Under the Sunset, but I do not expect you to have read that either. It was a book of children's stories.
was one of them about a prince? Prince Sapphire and Princess Bluebell?
Hi!
My teacher was after reading it to us in school, and once or twice I did the like for the little ones. That was you, Mr. Stoker.
It was. It is.
What more'd you write?
A story here and there. My next book will not be published until November. The Snake's Pass.
About snakes.
About the king of snakes and Ireland in the bog. Next year comes The Seven Golden Buttons. I have 2 more books half written.
Are you writing one of them now, while you're here on holiday?
I'm thinking of a completely new one. I got the notion for it after a most unsettling dream, and after dining with a learned friend. It is a story about a most unusual man, a man who cannot die and feeds on the living.
Oh, don't know as I like that one. Just the thought shivers me.
Perhaps I shall chance a few pages during my stay, if my ideas sharpen. I could show you.
Now, don't cod me.
Never. A good writer values the opinion of a good reader.
Maggie, where are you, girl?
Number 4, Mrs. Almost done.
Oh, before you go, my trunk?
The wagon boys will be fetching it from the railway station.
Splendid. And where may I take my suits for a good pressing and brushing?
What are you doing? Talking about his ear off again? Leave the gentleman alone. I need you down here.
I'll be cleaning your suits myself, sir. Just lay them out on the bed when you want them done. Coming, Mrs.
Thank you. Tell her this is all my doing. I had too many questions for you. Not on at all to chance her temper, is it?
Aye, sir. Thank you, sir.
After Maggie exits, Stoker looks towards the window again and sighs with pleasure. Blackout. Scene 2. In darkness we hear rushing wind and the squawk of seabirds, the clanging bell of a buoy tossed about and the water rushing against rocks. Lights rise on Stoker, seated on a bench, gazing about and using a fountain pen to write in a leather-bound notebook. He is surrounded by tombstones, actual or suggested by lighting or projection. Bert Swallows enters behind Stoker and approaches the bench. An old seaman, he is dressed as such and puffing a pipe. He stops a short distance away from the bench.
The gods must be with me today to keep half me favorite bench free for the sitting on a summer afternoon, providing the gentleman got no objection to the company.
None at all, sir. Please join me.
Well, thank you kindly. These old legs is always done for after the steps. I need to sit for my bones start screaming and me lungs start cursing me. You're a tripper. I spec'd up from London. If your coat's the picture of truth, the Whitby's choked with your soap this time of year.
I am indeed on holiday from London, sir. Bram Stoker.
How about that, Mr. Stoker? Oh, we got the same initials we do. B.S. Bert Swallows, at your service.
Well, pleased to make your acquaintance, Mr. Swallows.
What are you writing there? Don't see many trippers scratching all the way like you was just doing.
Just bits of ideas, nothing special. You said this is your favorite bench. I take it then you are from Whitby and visit this seat often?
I am a Yorkshireman, true enough, but I lived and worked at sea for near 70 years. Oh, now don't bother lying about how I don't look my age, 'cause I know my face gives honest testimony.
Mr. Swallows, your face invites my abundant respect.
Whitby is where I stayed when it was impossible to go to sea. I put ashore here for the last time 10 years ago, when I got too old for the water. Oh, I come here near every day. A good many of me mates is buried in this yard. It comforts me to sit amongst them.
Then you must know the stories behind some of these stones.
Oh, a goodly number of true stories, and some fantastical stories, and about more than me shipmates.
Such as?
Have you heard about the Lady in White, which haunts Whitney Abbey up there?
No.
Well, the Abbey ain't nothing but a stone skeleton now, but it was built over 1,200 years ago. Before the Danes overrun it 200 years after that, it was a double monastery, with men on one side and women on the other. Now, whatever their vows was in those days, young men and young women in the same place is like to lead to a particular kind of mischief, if you catches my meaning.
I do.
Oh, spoken like a true man of the world. There's a story that floats about of a fallen sister who was walled up alive inside the abbey to keep her sin hidden, if he catches my meaning again.
That's quite a tale. A blend of Walter Scott and my friend Wilkie Collins. May he rest in peace.
No, never heard of either of them. But I bet their woman stayed inside her wall.
And your lady in white did not?
Got to remember to fill me back a box tonight if I'm going to be out here all day tomorrow. Now, the lady in white didn't rest in peace. Some say she's restless because she wasn't buried in the soil and walks through the ruins at night, passing from window to window as she looks for someone, anyone, to bring peace to her soul and the one she carries.
The good people of Whitby have seen her, the ghost.
Aye, some.
And they know she is not vapor, the mist rising from a rolling sea and illuminated by moonlight?
Oh, they know her unborn child spirit been drifting through the town these last few years.
To what end?
To whisper to the girls of Whitby, who sometimes wander off and are never seen again.
It is hardly unusual for the young to leave home for work or something more exciting. Nothing ghostly about girls moving to Manchester or London. You'll need a better story than that if you want me to give you money for a pint.
Sir, there ain't no need to be insulting.
I know the game. A ghost story to catch pence off trippers who will be gone in a week or two.
Oh, but I haven't told you yet about the bar guest, the giant black hound with red eyes and dagger teeth. What wandered these cliffs at night to signal the coming of death? Oh, a fierce thing it is, with a damp malodorousness straight from the grave.
Another time, perhaps, when I have an appetite for the fantastical, or the malodorous. Have you ever even set foot on a ship?
Oh, my life on the sea is all true. My father was a soldier, spent time in Jersey, where I met me mum. They took their vows on a boat between the Channel Islands in England and came home to Kingston upon Hull, where I was born. I put to sea at 10, fishing and hauling cargo on too many vessels to count.
Do you miss the sea?
I miss being young enough to be on it. I knows ships, sir, if I knows nothing else.
Then what can you tell me of the shipwreck? The girl at my guest house mentioned it.
Back in '85 it was, a Saturday in October. Wasn't a tragedy that took lives and lost cargo, but it could have been. The wind was high that afternoon, and the sea was heavy. There was this schooner south of the harbor, being pushed by wind and water towards the breakers on the Scar. From the shore, she looked like she'd end up crashing against the rocks. As word went round, people rushed to the cliffs and piers to watch as the crew tried to save her. They tried to get some small boats in the water for those men, if she went down. She was Russian, the Dmitri. Can't remember the captain's name, but he was a fella, knew what he was doing. Now she'd this way and that, and he just worked that wheel to keep her upright. It was like he was tied to it. He got her past the rocks by the sledway and made it to the mouth of the harbor where the water was a mite calmer. His one mistake was dropping sail too soon, because there was a swell like a last galley, and it pushed her to the sand and gravel hard. When the crew got off and made it through the shallows to dry land, the crowds cheered, wild-like. The next morning, at low tide, she was quite the sight. A wooden corpse with broken masts, but her cargo of silver sand was intact, and she spilt no man's blood. Wow. At this point, sir, the listener is appreciative of what I've been telling, if he catches my meaning. Oh, when you get too old to work, and the Lord won't call you, even an old sea dog's got to eat.
Mr. Swallows, you're a bit of all right, and you know how to tell a story. I shall give you enough for a meal and 2 pints, if you can tell me something true about your mate's buried here.
Easy one, sir, so you prepare to pay. I'll give you 2 true stories to expose 2 lies in this very graveyard. See that stone with the roundish top? About 5 rows that way, 4 over from the broken cross.
Roundish, you say, over from the brook. Oh, yes, yes.
Ben Canning sailed with me 30-odd years ago, right there in the North Sea. Oh, a good Christian man he was, and a good friend to have at your side. And that there stone marks his grave.
Here lies Ben Cannon.
Oh, it's not Ben doing the lying, though, 'cause he ain't there.
Oh, no.
Swept overboard in a storm in '63 he was. Saw it himself, right out there. His body was never found. His widow buried his old underclothes, a hat, and a pair of muddy boots.
Naked and embarrassed at the gates of heaven. I should think that tops the distress of the lady in white.
For certain. But a fella just over there got even more cause to walk the night. The one under the cross that looks like it was made for a one-armed Jesus. Johnny Pickles his name was. Come, see for yourself.
He was so young.
Aye. We sailed together when I was near the end of my time at sea, and he was at the start of his. We were on a cargo ship, scuttering back and forth between here and the continent.
Was he washed overboard as well? A mere boy, terrified in the water.
Oh, no. He's there, neath a stone, tidy and dry. It's supposed to say, beloved son. Oh, that's the woeful part if you knew Johnny. He put to sea to get free of a mother who hated him so much, she made his life a walk and breathe and piss in hell. Oh, nothing is sadder than hatred between a mother and child. With no place to go but home when he put into port, Johnny might have gone overboard if she hadn't got insurance on him. Maybe it was grip that kept him ashore that summer. Maybe it was her broth. When he knew it was death boiling in his belly, he hung himself so she couldn't collect on the life she made and made miserable.
My God. And they buried a suicide in sacred ground?
Oh, the priest knew what a horror she was, sucking the life out of Johnny from the time he was born. He told us a merciful God would understand and grant the boy rest. In any case, she's answering for it in person these days. Some believe it was another of our mates who hammered off one side of the cross to break the word beloved in 2. Myself, I think it was the priest. A lie that covers the reason for a suicide has got to be more offensive to the Almighty than the suicide itself. And there you have it. The shipwreck and 2 truths that reveal 2 lies. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you kindly. Next time, the Barghest, with its red eyes you dare not look into.
Stoker nods and watches Swallows exit. Sir Walter and Augustus Wren enter from somewhere else unseen.
Is that Bram Stoker I see?
Yes.
It is you. My word, what are you doing in Whitby?
Sir Sir Walter? The governor's friend? The baronet of...
The fifth and likely last baronet of Harlock Hall. A surgeon like your brother Thornley, whom I met in Dublin some years ago, and yes, a friend of Irving. Your friend as well, I trust, after so many suppers in the Lyceum's beefsteak room.
Oh, forgive my lapse in memory. I have not spoken to you as often as I ought. It's
just that the monstrous Mr. Irving keeps you so busy attending to details that you scarcely have time to chew your food, let alone digest it, or remember the multitude of faces at a feast.
Well, the theatre does place so many demands upon the governor. I do my best to alleviate them and free him to pursue his art with the clearest focus.
An assertion I am certain you believe wholeheartedly. How was the tour?
Oh, tiring more than anything else. We played so many towns, I never knew where I was when I woke each morning. The crowds were not as large as... Well, the governor declared it a success.
Of course he did. Just like him to make an aria out of a goat song.
I don't understand.
Of course you do. You maintain the ledgers. If my banking friends have been discussing it, you must know your tour made less money than hoped for. God knows how many actors will have to be let go. But he'd never let you go, would he? If he did, he might as well discharge himself.
No manager is irreplaceable. But there is only one Henry Irving.
False modesty and fawning admiration are an unseemly mix.
But he is a great man, and I...
Yes, there's talk. He may one day become the first actor to be knighted. But if not for your tireless devotion, Ellen Terry, the entire Lyceum, and he would have collapsed into dust long ago. He may envision a monument to himself every time he declaims beneath the proscenium, but it is you who carry the shovel and dig the hole for that statue's foundation.
It's very kind of you to say so, Walter.
Stoker, I'm not the only one who wonders if Irving realizes what a treasure he has in you. And I'll wager the old skinflint pays a pittance for your services. If you worked for me...
But I know nothing about the business side of medicine. Thornley is the doctor in the family.
Well, these days I seldom do more than give smelling salts to women whining about the vapors. Oh, there's the occasional surgical lecture, but only when I'm in London. No wife, no heirs, a small house staff I rarely see because I travel. Working for me would be less taxing, more pleasurable. Fear not, Augustus. I have no intention of simply replacing someone who carries the shovel as well as you do. But your abilities do not extend to clerical work and business considerations. Stoker, my valet, major domo, and indispensable friend, Augustus Wren. Augustus, Mr. Stoker.
Stoker and Wren shake hands as Wren nods deferentially.
I believe I've seen you around the theatre, Mr. Wren. Not in the beefsteak room, but nearby. Perhaps waiting for Sir Walter after a performance?
Wren nods again.
Augustus is a man of very few words, Stoker. Another reason to seek companionship for some of my travels. So, what brings you to Whitby?
The entire company's on holiday.
Here, all of them?
Oh, no, I'm the only one here. I've given scant thought to where the others have scattered. I shall see them all soon enough.
How long have you been here?
Since yesterday.
Is your wife with you? And I believe you have a child?
A son, 10. They have not yet come, but perhaps in a week or two.
Where are you staying?
The Vasey Guest House, 6 Royal Crescent.
You must be joking. We're staying there as well. Since last week. Are you the fellow on the second floor?
I am. And you must be the gentleman in the rooms above mine. You were not at breakfast.
A meal I rarely take, especially when I have the chance of a bracing constitutional.
Nor supper last evening.
I enjoy the anonymity of eating in the public houses.
Well, then I would appreciate your recommendations, as this is my first time in Whitby.
Happy to do so. I've been here many times over the years, always at a different guest house. My dear fellow, this is a most delightful stroke of good fortune.
In what way, Sir Walter?
We have much to discuss, and the time to do it. We are both gentlemen with restless intellects. Perhaps we are like-minded, perhaps not. But being in Whitby at the same time offers us an opportunity for stimulating exchanges, London gossip, politics, the latest books, art, theatre. Our choices are endless.
Oh, I should think my intellect is hardly prepared to keep pace with yours.
Nonsense. I know you think of yourself as a functionary in matters of the Lyceum, but I know your brain holds other talents. You've written news articles, theatre reviews, stories.
Diversions in my leisure time.
What of your spirited defense of the American poet Whitman during your time in Trinity College's Philosophical Society? Was that simply youthful exuberance?
That was so very long ago. How?
Or your later lecture at the London Institution on Whitman's feelings about Abraham Lincoln? You have an intellect too keen for false modesty. Irving has told me it was your review of his Hamlet that first drew him to you. And he said you corresponded with Whitman long before the Lyceum went on tour in America and you got a chance to meet him. Your writing engaged two of the most nimble minds of the age, and come November, the Snake's Pass will do the same for readers all over London.
You're chaffing me.
Not in the least.
You know of my book?
I have read your book. Yes, my friend, we have much to discuss. I should invite you to my rooms for tea. Alas, my accommodations are modest. A choice that permits me to move into and about Whitby with the least fuss.
Oh, my rooms are more than sufficient, particularly since my family is yet to arrive. I should be honored to have you as my guest.
Today, Mr. Wren and I still have a duty or two to attend.
Well, it's nearly 3 hours until...
Time enough for me to accomplish my errands, and time enough for you to rest. Rest that intellect of yours, for I intend to task it. It is my pleasure to accept your invitation, Stoker.
Oh, the pleasure, Sir Walter, will be mine. Till 5, then.
Sir Walter and Wren watch Stoker go, then turn to each other.
You are sure, sir, that he is the man?
As certain as I am of your devotion, Mr. Wren. There is something about Mr. Stoker that convinces me he is exactly the man we seek.
Blackout. Scene 3. Lights rise on Maggie in the sitting room. An old-style carpet sweeper leans against the desk. Maggie is sweeping surfaces with a linen dust cloth. After a moment, she places the cloth in one pocket of her apron and takes out another cloth from the other pocket. She resumes her dusting, then pockets the second cloth. Wiping a hand across her forehead, she goes to the bookcase, takes out a book with a visible bookmark in place, and sets on the sofa. She begins to read. Presently, we hear the lock undone, which startles her, and Stoker enters. Placing his notebook on the desk, he begins to shed his auburn topcoat.
Sir, gave me a start, you did.
Oh, my apologies. I know I'm back earlier than expected.
I thought you was Mrs. V trying to catch me rotten, not doing me work.
Oh, surely you're entitled to catch your breath.
She don't like me much pawning through the books in here.
Take it with you, then. I shan't be reading that one during my stay. Read it before you sleep. Well, you must have a lamp in your room.
Aye, sir. But she don't like me to be using too much paraffin, or taking books out of here because they're for the guests.
Well, I shall keep it a secret if you will. And tomorrow I shall buy you a small supply of paraffin, enough to get you through that volume.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Stoker, sir.
But I am wondering something.
Aye, sir?
Why, you neglected to tell me that my upstairs neighbor was Sir Walter Drake, the Baronet of Harlock Hall and the leading Harley Street surgeon.
Is that who he is? I just knew he was a gentleman is all.
We are friends.
How nice for you both.
Well, acquaintances, actually. We've attended some of the same suppers back in London, but never had much a chance to talk. We were quite surprised to see each other at the churchyard.
You made it up the steps.
I did, all the way.
What did you think of the view?
Oh, just as breathtaking as you said. Oh, and I met a colorful old fellow who told me tales of the sea.
Did he tell you about the shipwreck?
Oh, yes. Oh, well then Sir Walter happened by, and we discovered we were staying in the same guest house. I should like to invite him to tea here. Would that pose difficulty for Mrs. Vasey?
Today.
Yes. Sir Walter and I began a discussion I feel we must continue.
Then I would be happy to bring up a tray of tea and biscuits for you, sir.
Oh, thank you, Maggie.
Mrs. V won't mind if you're both guests in this house. Now, if it was someone you brought back who wasn't paying her, she might kick at feeding him.
No worries in that regard. I shall do nothing to abuse her house or her hospitality.
Will the gentleman's servant be with him?
I cannot say for sure.
You never see one without the other. I thought maybe I could keep back a biscuit or two for him to put in his pocket later.
How kind of you.
I'm not getting notions, but it can't be easy working for a gentleman and carrying all his things here and there without getting stroppy. A biscuit in a quiet time wouldn't go astray.
I'm sure he'd be most appreciative.
Tea at 2 for 5 then. Sir.
Maggie exits. Stoker removes his suit jacket and places it on the sofa. Now down to his waistcoat, he sits at the writing desk and opens his leather-bound notebook. Taking out a fountain pen, he begins to scratch words onto the page, moving faster and faster, excited by what he's doing. He begins to talk to himself in spurts.
A ship laden with silver sand runs aground. A man washed overboard as his helpless shipmates must go on. A mother who sucks the life out of her son. A lady in white, concerned for the soul of the child she carries. A woman and child, both doomed to walk through eternity because of her sin. They are bound in blood, pursued by a hound with red eyes and the smell of death. Blood, red eyes. Blood.
Rises, goes to the bookcase, pages through a Bible. Stops.
Deuteronomy 12:23. Only be sure that thou eat not the blood, for the blood is the life, and thou mayest not eat the life with the flesh. The blood is the life. Yes.
It's Maggie, sir. You have a wire from London.
Very well.
Standing, Stoker exits and returns with a folded telegram in his hand. Lights slowly fade as he opens it. He stops center stage. Irving enters, speaking as if lecturing. Stoker reacts to the message's demands.
Hope your holiday's splendid. Stop. Remember letters to post. Stop. Already wrote Mackenzie re Ravenswood music. Stop. Other Ravenswood letters to Harker and Craven reset colors. Stop. To Loveday reprod schedule. Add hope recuperation continues apace. Stop. Castle reprinting. Stop. Terracin confirm Butland. Stop. Miss Letier confirm Lady Ashton. Stop. Other letters. Stop. Tennyson thank for Aldworth invitation. Stop. Will come autumn. Stop. W.G. Willis thank for King Arthur script. Stop. Will reply soon. Stop. J.I.C. Clark, New York, reprogress of Quixote play requested.
Blackout. Scene 4. In darkness, we hear Stoker in a voiceover. As lights rise slowly to half, colors constantly changing, he is seated at the desk in his room, writing furiously, stuffing envelopes.
Messieurs Harker and Craven, given the size and depth of the set, the Chief would like assurance that there will be sufficient time for the set colors to be ground, mixed to specification, and applied. Should you need more men to accomplish this?
A beat, a shift in lighting color.
Loveday, how are you feeling, old fellow? As noted from his letter from Glasgow, the Chief is concerned and wishes you all the best. Now, when we reassemble in a few weeks, it is imperative that the production schedule for Ravenswood be in its final form. Therefore,
A beat, a shift in lighting color.
Mr. Castle, there has been a slight change or two to the cast of Ravenswood. I will post the final dramatis personae to you as soon as I am able. Mr. Partridge's program illustration should be completed by next week. He will send them to you by messenger. 3 weeks from now, when Mr. Irving and I are both in London, we
A
will...
beat, a shift in lighting color.
And so, my lord, Mr. Irving proposes that we come to Aldworth in the autumn. He has given me the choice of date. I have consulted our calendar and chosen Sunday, October 19th. If that date would not inconvenience you...
Lights rise to full and stabilize. Snatched back to the present, Stoker starts, sets down his pen and stands.
Yes?
Rise, Stoker, your guest has arrived. A bit early, I'm afraid. Did I catch you napping, old man? Courting Morpheus from having quaffed so much sea hair. Did I... Hello, you look as if you haven't napped a bit.
A telegram from the governor. Urgent correspondence that need to be done.
With Irving, every matter is urgent, is it not? He treats you like a retriever. If I am disturbing you.
No, you're quite right. Everything is of great urgency. But I'm done now. And Maggie will be along shortly with tea. Enter freely, Sir Walter. I'm delighted you are here.
No more than I am to be here, Stoker, and may I leave a measure of that delight behind. I look forward to a stimulating tea time.
Please sit as well, Mr. Wren.
A large man, but you will find him quiet as a fly, and much less intrusive.
Quite unlike the actors with whom I work.
And you may speak freely in front of him. I depend on Mr. Wren for so much that when he was seriously ill some time ago, I nearly lost my mind. But all is well now, and we are back on track. If he keeps my dark secrets, he will certainly keep yours.
I have no dark secrets, Sir Walter. I haven't the time, with all I must do for the Lyceum.
I look forward to hearing of Irving's plans for the coming season.
Oh, I am at greater liberty to discuss what we've already done than what we plan to do. But first, I have something to show you.
What's the... My God! Whitman! Leaves of Grass! Signed!
It was a gift from him the third time we met, 3 years ago. Well, given the declining state of his health then, I fear it was our final meeting. I carry this book with me when I travel to think of him and our friendship. Well, and reading it is the best way I know to chase ledgers and contracts and rail schedules out of my brain.
What of your letters?
Well, his letters to me and copies of mine to him are in a safe place in my home.
Some things must be kept close to the breast. You see, there is an air of secrecy about you.
Well, secrets, yes, but no truly dark secrets. Unless you consider that sometimes I work through the night, bathe after sunrise, and sleep the morning away.
Does Irving intrude upon your life even in the small hours? Or is that when your fertile brain spins stories like the snake's parts?
Yes, you said you read my book.
You are wondering how I managed to do so before its publication.
Yes.
The answer is simple. I was at school with Rivington.
One of the partners at the publishing house?
One benefit of our friendship is that from time to time I'm given an advance look at books before they go to press, always in one of the house's reading rooms in Fetterley.
Well, they publish many titles. How did you chance upon mine?
When Rivington mentioned his newer authors, I recognized your name and wondered if the big jovial man who does everything but pull down Irving's nightshirt and put him to bed actually writes more than the occasional newspaper article. I came away from the reading room with a favorable opinion of your work, most favorable.
Thank you, Sir Walter. It's kind of you to say so.
It's not that the book is perfect, mind you, but it is an auspicious start.
What exactly is wrong with it?
Oh, minor things, nothing you need trouble yourself about at the moment. Your depiction of Ireland and the Irish character and tongue are quite entertaining. Your descriptions are so beautiful, the reader cannot help seeing the richness of the countryside or the colours in the sky.
My editor assures me those are among the book's strengths.
And that fog! Wonderful and terrible all at once. Your sense of place is likely the strongest I've seen since the Deemster portrayed the Isle of Man.
Oh, I shall accept that as a high compliment. Hall Caine is a friend. To be compared to him is an honor.
Irving, Whitman, and Caine? I had no idea the breadth of your influence.
Caine and I have been friends since I came to the Lyceum. A sterling fellow. Did you see Ben My Tree, his stage adaptation of the Deemster?
I'm afraid I did not. When did it open?
2 years ago in May. It was at the Princess, not the Lyceum. Caine changed the ending to be more suitable for the stage. Dan doesn't die of sickness at the end, but instead is waiting for the hangman.
How melodramatic. We were travelling on the continent then. After we returned to London in the summer, well, that was when Wren was taken ill. I was so distracted I paid little attention to society.
Well, the governor was so impressed, he recently engaged Caine to write a play about the Prophet Muhammad.
How interesting! That ought to bring in the curious and other patrons you've never seen before.
Well, Irving got a hold of a French drama about the subject, and my wife translated it for him. Well, when he declared it was beneath his standards, too French, he hired Caine to write a better script.
Have there been objections from London's Mohammedans?
One letter in a newspaper when the word leaked out in May, but I expect little trouble mounting a production, though I have no idea when that will be.
You run the leading theatre in London and handle the affairs of England's most famous actor, from the minutiae of his productions to his lavish suppers. Yet somehow you have found the time to engage with illustrious men and write a compelling book. You are a remarkable man.
Well, we shall soon see whether the readers agree with you.
Women will learn certain, because of the love story intended to appeal to their sensibilities.
Their sense. Do you disbelieve in love?
I disbelieve in the sort you do.
I do not understand. The seeking of love.
There is love to be had, of course, of necessity, to ensure the continuation of the species. But for the enlightened, exceptional man, unbound by convention and daring to satisfy new appetites, perhaps it is that you spend so much time in the theatre where melodrama and tidy endings seem to rule the day. Tell me, are you at work on another novel? I am fascinated by the creative mind.
I've finished a new one that will be out next year. 2 more are half-written. Lately, however, another tale has been pushing its way to the front of my brain.
Are you free to discuss any of these books?
If you're going to ask me where I get my ideas...
I am asking you precisely that.
Well, you may disapprove of the answer, perhaps even find me quite the glutton.
I am hardly one to judge another's cravings, but you have piqued my curiosity.
This newest idea began in the beefsteak room one spring evening, when I overindulged in dressed crab.
Oh my!
Well, it was one of those nights when I was so tired that when I reached home, I gave up on any notion of writing and went straight to bed.
With a belly heavier than usual.
And I had the most frightful dream.
I can only imagine.
Oh, with all due respect, Sir Walter, I doubt you can. I was stretched out upon a stone floor, and 3 lovely young women knelt around me.
I think I can imagine that scenario perfectly well.
It was as if the witches of Macbeth were beautiful. They brought their lips to my flesh.
You dreamt of images such as might be found in an illustrated edition of Burton's 1,000 Nights and a Night. The clergy chose not to tell you so, but carnal dreams come to all men.
No, this was not a dream of carnality, but of blood.
Indeed. Imagine, Wren, a dream of blood.
These women were not trying to kiss me. They were attempting to drink my blood, to feed of me. They might have done it if an old man with a long white mustache had not appeared and stopped them by saying, Touch him not. This man belongs to me.
So the old fellow wanted to drink your blood, like some kind of vampire.
Yes.
No doubt you would have much preferred to give yourself to the young women.
Not these young women, these succubi. The old man gave them something to shift their attention from me. It was in a sack when he tossed it to the stone floor. The instant before they fell upon it like wild dogs, I heard a cry from inside that sounded like the muted scream of an infant. Oh. Rivulets of blood ran between them toward where I lay, helpless to move or speak. Then the old man knelt beside me and seized my throat with his teeth. Oh, the last thing I saw before I awakened was blood. My blood, staining his white mustache as he sat on his haunches and smiled.
For a long moment, no one says anything. Stoker looks away as if embarrassed to face Sir Walter. Meanwhile, Sir Walter and Wren exchange looks, and Sir Walter smiles. He places a hand on Stoker's shoulder and look to each other in silence for several seconds before he removes it.
What kind of book does such a dream inspire?
One that scares even me as I contemplate writing it.
Terror is a most useful emotion when you can spark it in others and get them to do what you wish. But enough talent to make a calendar of horrors command the bare walls in your own soul must be glorious. Have you discussed this dream with anyone else?
Oh, I couldn't with the governor. The old man rather looked like him, or how I would expect him to look 20 years hence with a long white mustache.
He is rather like a vampire, isn't he? Holding you in his sway and sucking the life out of you one drop at a time.
But I did discuss it with Professor Vanbury. He visited a few weeks later and joined us for supper after seeing the dead heart.
Vanbury? How do I know that name?
Arminius Vanbury. He was speaking on tour last spring. You may have read of it. He is a scholar from the University of Budapest. An historian, Turkologist, Orientalist. One of the most interesting men I have ever met. We managed to talk privately while Irving was tending to the other guests.
What did he tell you?
He too connected the dream to vampirism, about which I knew very little. He said the old man sounded like a king vampire, or a vampire, who controlled the weaker vampires around him. He directed me to various books on folklore and told me tales he had heard in his travels through Hungary, Romania, and Transylvania, which he called the land beyond the forest. Did you know that belief in vampires or the undead or some manner of restless death is universal? Depending on where you find yourself in the world, witches, warlocks, traitors, or suicide buried in consecrated grounds can return from the grave. So can the excommunicated, unbaptized children, the killers of children, 7 sons of 7 sons, or those born with the teeth they call. Once they walk the night, they must have the blood of the living to survive indefinitely.
And the living are only too happy to stand there and let dead Uncle Charles or a newly deceased neighbor have at an offering.
Well, the undead are believed to be creatures of the devil with the power of mesmerism.
For some time now in the medical literature, it has been called hypnosis. It has proven effective on some persons, not so much on others.
Supposedly, nearly everyone is susceptible to vampires. They come to those already asleep, or render those awake mute and compliant. After feeding, they must return to their graves. To be stopped, they have to be staked in their coffins to keep them from moving abroad.
That sounds positively medieval.
Well, even here, in the most civilized nation on earth, driving a stake through a body to fix it in its grave was not outlawed until 1823. Not 70 years ago. Well, and even this late in the 19th century, a woman can still be convicted of witchcraft.
So your book is about vampires?
Yes.
My father had a volume of penny dreadful pieces called Varney the Vampire, which I read in my youth.
I don't know Varney, but the newspaper where I worked in Dublin was co-owned by Sheridan LaFanu. Long ago, I read his vampire story, Camilla.
Is your book modern, or does your creature live in the past like Sir Francis Varney?
Modern? After I read monographs on the subject, I began to think about vampirism as a kind of plague. What if the bite of the vampire creates more vampires? What if somehow I could get my vampire to London so that growing numbers of the undead threaten the entire city?
What is your book called?
Count Vampire.
He must realize he cannot afford to turn everyone into a vampire. All predators and no prey limit his chances of survival. If he drinks only what he needs and makes no competitors of his victims, he can hunt indefinitely, presuming the hunt is what he loves most.
I hadn't thought of that.
Of course, if one man proves immune, all of ever-hungry London will be him. But then we lose sight of Vampire. Perhaps he can create a companion. Even the undead must feel loneliness.
Stoker rises as if in thought and moves to the window. Unseen by Stoker, Sir Walter and Wren exchange looks. Sir Walter smiles.
Yes?
Tea, sir.
Oh, come, Maggie.
Maggie enters with a tea set cups and biscuits on a silver tray. She sets it on the tea table and begins to pour. Sir Walter eyes her with obvious interest, which Stoker notices. All are quiet.
For Mr. Stoker's guest. For Mr. Stoker. Will the gentlemen be having tea as well?
Have a cup, Wren.
Nodding, Wren accepts tea and 3 biscuits from Maggie. He pockets 2, thanking her with a long look and a slow nod.
Unless you'll be wanting something else, Mr. Stoker, I will leave you gentlemen in peace.
Oh, that will be... wait, Maggie, these letters. Mind you engage a boy and get them to the station?
Aye, sir.
Good. This should be enough for the postage. And for you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll see they're posted at once.
Letters in hand, Maggie lowers her head and begins her exit.
Some confections are too beautiful to eat, even for one such as Count Vampire.
For a moment, there is an uncomfortable silence. Then Wren slurps his tea, puts a whole biscuit in his mouth as Stoker sits. Both men sip and nibble through the exchange as Wren watches, clearly studying Stoker, who seems troubled.
So I should abandon the idea of a vampire plague.
Well, that is not my choice to make. But I would ask myself which premise is scarier for your reader. Having a monster move unnoticed among a throng of humanity, or having a throng of monsters.
You have given me much to consider, Sir Walter.
Especially in the light of what you have done with the snake's pass.
What mistakes have I made now?
Your hero, Arthur, has had his grand and magical adventure. How does this dashing fellow end it all? By getting married to Nora and leaving for Italy.
Is it the marriage you object to, or Italy?
Both, dear Stoker, both. You are surely within your rights to ask whether my own well-publicized aversion to matrimony is the cause. But I am afraid love stories leave me cold, especially when there is so much more adventure to be had when a man is not chained to a harem.
Well, then that is the difference between us. I am married and you are...
Unchained. Can you say the same?
It is not marriage and family that chain me. Not even him. It is duty, sir. Duty is not a chain round the individual, but round the framework that holds the world together from one generation to the next. My duty to my family is to secure their well-being in future. My duty to Irving is to create the best possible environment for him to express his art. My duty to the crowd.
What of your duty to yourself?
Sir Walter.
Forgive me, Stoker. I can be overbearing, I know. I was so eager for our exchange, I'm afraid I may have overstepped my bounds and suggested your wife as a harridan. Please let me explain.
I think I understood your meaning.
It is my own prejudice speaking. I am a man of extraordinary appetites and fascinations that are incompatible with having a wife. Marriage is not for me, but for some men it is a joy, one I have no right to smother.
There are joys, yes. Over time, there are challenges.
Of course, sometimes husbands and wives become strangers. We change over time, all of us.
Oh, Florence, the angel in my home.
Tell me about her. I know she speaks French, and is no stranger if she translates plays for Earl. If I am not mistaken, I believe she is Irish too.
Actually, she was born in Cornwall, while her father was serving in Bombay. The family moved to Clontarf when she was 2.
Clontarf, is that where you were born?
It is.
You are childhood sweethearts then?
No, we met at my friend Willie's home some years after, and, well, he and I were at Trinity together.
I've been told Mrs. Stoker is a woman of singular beauty.
Yes. With her duties to our son in the house, well, she appears in public less often these days, but when she does, she never fails to turn the heads and draw sighs from otherwise stoic men.
She must have had many suitors.
Only one who mattered. Willie's brother Oscar was quite taken with her, but I...
Wait, Willie and Oscar, the critics, Lady Wilde's sons.
Yes.
So Oscar Wilde might have got the prize if not for your persistence?
When he was at Oxford, he failed to maintain the degree of correspondence necessary to keep her interests alive.
Ah, you swooped in to fill the hole in her heart. That must have shaken him.
Willie actually smiled when he told me his brother was distraught. He assured me that I should feel no shame. Steadiness is more dependable than flamboyance. Florrie, he said, could see that.
I apologize, Stoker. Great beauty, an unreliable suitor, a hero to the rescue. Your belief in love is vindicated by this wonderful story. Not melodramatic in the least, but it has the feel of a play, or a legend. You are the rare fortunate husband.
Likely not so rare, and therefore not the enlightened, exceptional man of bold appetites you mentioned earlier. A description more apt to suit both Wildes, especially Oscar, inasmuch as Willie is too much in his cups these days.
Oh, so I've heard, poor son. But you're right about Oscar. His newest work is most flamboyant.
For some time now, I have read his criticisms and his poetry only in passing. His work is never as witty as he thinks it is.
True. But he is still exceptional.
Though not far removed from that first-year student I sponsored for the Philosophical Society. The rest of us have matured and come to understand the metaphysical musings are possible only when they are undergirded by the basic business of hard work. For Oscar, hard work seems to have meant marrying a woman with money. If dreaming while your wife supports you is what makes you exceptional...
Not dreaming, but daring. Daring to think and do what others are afraid to consider. You dare to dream of vampires overrunning London. But I wonder if you will dare to dream far enough.
I cannot answer that. I have not yet begun to write.
Wilde's new piece dares far more than anything else he's written. It is in the current Lippincotts.
I have not seen it. The tour and all.
Of course. The picture of Dorian Gray is about the separation of good and evil in the individual. A thrilling tale. Wren is not one for books, but I read it to him over 2 evenings, and he seemed to enjoy it very much.
Like Stevenson's story of Jekyll and his formula.
Somewhat, but with a different thrust. There is no changing back and forth. I have the magazine upstairs. You can judge for yourself.
Jekyll and Hyde. 2 years ago in New York, the governor saw Richard Mansfield undertake the role and invited him to stage a play at the Lyceum.
Oh, I remember that. His performance gave me so many nightmares I saw it thrice.
It gave everyone nightmares, especially the critics.
The metamorphosis from kind doctor to cold killer was nothing short of miraculous. 1 minute he's standing there perfectly respectable, the next he's a stooped, hulking monster. Face, hair, and posture. So different he seemed to have shed his skin.
It was a remarkable piece of stage magic.
Don't dangle me like a worm above a fish, Stoker. How was it done?
Ordinarily, I'm disinclined to reveal an actor's secrets, but the governor went away during rehearsals and left Loveday and me to attend to Mr. Mansfield's needs.
His needs? That sounds ominous.
He proved a most unpleasant guest in our theatre, more Hyde than Jekyll, as demanding as Irving, but lacking all the governor's good graces. He compounded his insults by calling our stagehands lazy and argumentative, good men who deserved better. So, perhaps there is some justification for a minor breach of stagecraft confidentiality.
Sir Walter and Wren leaned towards Stoker as if conspirators.
How did he manage his transformation? What you say will never leave this room, right, friend?
First, his facial muscles were so strong he could contort his features and hold them in an unusual expression for a long time. His makeup had special reflective properties, so its appearance changed as the color of the lights changed. The governor insists that our lighting system be second to none. Finally, his wig could be rotated during the writhing that Mansfield did as he transformed. When he stood, or half stood since Hyde was hunched over, he seemed a completely different person.
That was it. Nothing more elaborate. It appeared so real.
Real enough that the police questioned him about the Ripper murders.
You must be joking.
I wish I were. 2 years ago this autumn.
Yes, I recall a review or two that likened Hyde to the Ripper, but I never thought anyone took the notion seriously. The most credible idea was that he was some foreigner gone mad. Now you tell me that Richard Mansfield, world-renowned actor, was actually interviewed by the police.
Oh, I remember it clearly. One chief inspector, Abeline, and another detective came to the Lyceum in October, before the worst of it, and met with Mansfield privately in his dressing room.
What came of it?
Nothing. They must have gone away satisfied, because they never came back. Mansfield and his company left London for Liverpool in December. We've had no further dealings since.
After he was gone, the Ripper killings stopped, did they not?
It's difficult to say for certain. There was an especially brutal killing in early November, but there are so many killings in Whitechapel and other poor quarters. Who can say which savagery is the Ripper's handiwork and which is the work of another author? Oh, I'm sorry, Sir Walter, for having dragged you down this unpleasant path. You were speaking of Wilde's new story, and thinking of Stevenson just brought back these memories.
No apology is necessary. The thought that Richard Mansfield might be the Ripper is enough to keep my mind churning for some time. I shall have to raise the subject with my colleague Conan Doyle at our next Medical Society meeting and get his view. He seems to enjoy thinking through criminal behavior these days. Do you know him? Or his stories?
Well, I know Doyle well. His new story, The Sign of the Fall, was in Lippincotts earlier this year.
Perhaps he should put his man Holmes on Whitechapel, let him match wits with a monster. As for Stevenson, Jekyll uses chemicals to move back and forth between his good and evil sides. But Wilde's character hides his evil in a painting, and to the world remains ageless and beautiful, as his painted face withers with his corruption.
Really? Well, that could make an intriguing play for the governor. Well, if Mansfield hadn't beat him to it, he likely would have done Jekyll and Hyde himself. And he may yet do so.
Always the theatrical manager, eh?
I shall have to read the story, perhaps approach Wilde about the stage rights. But, knowing him, he will insist upon writing it himself, which means it could turn out like his first attempt at a drama.
Wilde wrote a play.
Vera or the Nihilists. It lasted only a week in New York and never played in London. Punch said the reviews were Vera bad. Irving's favorite word for such a script is dreadful.
I suspect Dorian Gray is much better than dreadful, though not yet a perfect story.
Now, what exactly is wrong with it?
With his portrait hidden, Dorian embarks upon a life of pure debauchery and evil, to the point of destroying others, but then attempts to redeem himself, like Jekyll trying not to transform, or Black Murdoch in The Snake's Pass, as hard-hearted a villain as I've ever seen.
Well, he is as I wrote him.
He lends money he knows can't be repaid and seizes land as payment. He hounds those around him to within an inch of their sanity. He tries to lie and trick his way into treasure and power. But what does he do at the end when the bog is swallowing his house? He is on the roof praying.
But redemption is key to our Christian faith. If we repent, even in the moment just before death, we can enter a state of grace, like Dan in the Deemster, who dies reciting the Lord's Prayer.
What if your villain seeks no redemption?
No redemption?
How much more interesting would it have been if he stood there shaking his fist at God, unrepentant to the last, daring the Almighty to take him, willing to burn in hell, because his embrace of evil is so strong?
But that is blasphemy.
The point of masking one's evil is not to repent of it later, but to move amongst people as if you are one of them, when you are really something altogether different.
He moves closer as Stoker steps back.
I do not fully grasp your meaning.
Conscience is unnecessary. How much more terrifying would the reader be if Black Murdoch and Henry Jekyll and Dorian Gray had no conscience at all? How many of us would ever venture into the world if there was a better than even chance? The man beside us on the train platform or in the theatre or in Leicester Square had more venom in his smile than a cobra, and not a sliver of redemption in his heart. Evil. Relentless and merciless evil. If you want this Count Vampire of yours to scare the hell out of people, Stoker, that is the way to do it.
Like that.
That's exciting. You'll be writing a whole book right here. Can I get a peek?
Not just yet. It's bad luck. I know I said I might share some of it with you, but at this moment, I have nothing of the book itself.
All that writing and no story yet.
I'm still working out my ideas and making an outline. I have no scenes as such to share yet. Only ill comes of showing things in this stage.
I am not one for wishing you ill. We be having tea again with Sir Walter. The sooner I tell Mrs. V.
We have not agreed upon tea today. And I find myself somewhat relieved.
Sir.
As stimulating as I have found these meetings with Sir Walter, they're quite tiring, dizzying, and unsettling. And with his creature Wren just sitting there, watching.
There is something about him, Mr. Stoker.
Wren?
Wren, too. But mostly Sir Walter. Something that shivers me, sir.
Has he said something to you? Something untoward?
Oh, no, sir. It's a feeling is all. He's like a great storm, and I'm just a leaf caught in his wind, as like to be torn apart as dropped on gentle grass.
I know exactly what you mean. He is a rare and forceful personage, impossible to ignore.
Never met anyone like him.
In many ways, he's like the governor. A quick and dramatic intellect, breathless in a way that keeps you on the edge of your chair as your mind turns and spins. After 3 teas with him, I need a day or 2 to put to order all the thoughts he's loaded into my head. The breadth of his knowledge is more than astounding. And he seems to know me so well.
Has he helped you write with the book then?
Yes, he has suggested an approach I would have never imagined. In fact, I shall be stopping by your library today to do a bit of research because of something he said.
What was that?
Half measures are for half men, he said. Dig into the matter until you find the truth at its core. Dig as deeply as you must into your subject or into yourself, or don't set foot inside at all.
And that's taken you to the library?
Aye, and the Abbey and St. Mary's. My book is here in Whitby. I feel that as surely as I feel the ache in my legs from walking. I must dig until I uncover the story I am meant to tell.
Stoker exits and Maggie looks after him for a moment. Then she begins dusting furniture. Lights fade and rise to signal the passage of time. Maggie is now using a carpet sweeper. Presently we hear the door, which startles her. Sir Walter enters.
Well, how delightful. The fetching Maggie.
Sir Walter?
And you're not reading a book as you were when I chanced upon you in my rooms last week. Is Mr. Stoker about?
No, sir.
Did you see him today?
Aye, sir.
It would seem you like Mr. Stoker, Maggie, and I am certain he likes you. Might he have told you where he was going?
I think the library, but I'll not be knowing just when. It's on the coffee house end by the quay.
I know where it is, Maggie. I am impressed that you do. Do you go there much?
No, sir. My work keeps me here most days.
You would like to go there more often, because it is full of books, and you love books.
Aye, sir.
But Mrs. Vasey thinks it's impertinent for a girl such as yourself to read above your station.
She does, sir. No matter how much I try to explain.
Mrs. V is a good woman, Maggie, and a good host, but she has no imagination, no curiosity. All she does is work and work and work and pray for the best, both here and in the afterlife.
Aye.
You, on the other hand, are a girl with dreams dancing through a hungry brain that demands more, demands color and music and laughter. The kind of nourishment not found on the plate.
His voice softens even more.
You are extraordinary. Service is drudgery, and duty pain for brains like yours, like ours, Maggie. You are unhappy unless you are thinking, calculating, imagining, singing in the concert hall of your skull. Deep in your heart, you know your mind will never find its spark here.
He touches the side of her face, strokes it gently.
You are unlike most other girls. They are content with menial jobs and calloused hands and a washdown. They take pride in their drunken husbands and dirty children and that nameplate in a church pew. They will live and die and be forgotten without having lived at all.
The finger now strokes her cheek, rhythm matching voice.
But you are different. You will find fulfillment, satisfaction, even joy in an office or a classroom or on a stage, but never in a factory or a guest house or a scullery. There are too many songs in your head that will go unsung. Too many sunrises in the arms of a lover that will go unseen. Too many books that will go unread. In truth, you are like your dear friend Mr. Stoker. You love books so much you can see yourself writing them the way he writes them. Words flowing from your mind, through your fingers, and on to the page with the pulse of a soul and the rhythm of a song.
Yes.
You will write them, Maggie, and people will know you as Mr. Stoker knows you, in cities and towns, across the continent and across the ocean. They will know you and they will love you, especially Mr. Stoker.
I should like to be loved.
You will never be happy in Whitby, never. In your heart of hearts, you know this is true. You will find no happiness here, while Manchester calls you, or Birmingham, or even London.
Like it did Lucy.
Lucy? Yes, Lucy.
My cousin. She worked here with me for a long time. But last year...
The man offered her a job in London, and she took it. And if you went there, you could find her. Yes, you can find Lucy. You will. Perhaps you will even share a room with her, or an entire flat if you are both as successful as she has been. Lucy will be delighted to see you, though it is not yet time for you to go to her. Have no worry. She is there in the distance waiting for her. You will go to her, and you will see Mr. Stoker in London. But for now you will remain here, at the guest house, tending to your regular duties. You will clean Mr. Stoker's rooms and serve him tea with great pleasure, and think nothing of our conversation until I whisper these words in your ear. Then you will know it is time. When I am gone, you will keep your eyes closed until your mind counts to 10. When your eyes open, you will return to your duties and remember nothing of my visit as you await my whisper. Goodbye, Maggie. For now.
Sir Walter steps away from her and exits. Blackout. End of Act 1. Act 2, Scene 1. Lights rise on the empty sitting room. The writing desk is now cluttered with books. After a moment, Stoker enters and sheds his jacket, which he puts on an armchair after he removes his notebook from the inside pocket. He opens the notebook and sits at the desk and uncaps his fountain pen. He begins to page through a book, occasionally scribbling a note.
Yes.
Maggie, sir. Mrs. V said you just came in. You have a wire.
Come.
Maggie enters. Stoker turns to her to accept the telegram and gestures for her to wait when she begins to withdraw. He opens the telegram and reads it, then stops and looks off, an uneasy thought.
If you'll be wanting to send a reply, sir, I can take a sealed envelope to the dispatch office for you.
That won't be necessary. My wife and son will be here at the start of next week.
Grand news. Thank you.
Yes.
It'll stand everyone to see family again.
Of course. And your smile is big enough for the both of us. Have you good news too?
I'm going to see Lucy soon.
Oh, well, she finally wrote to you. Splendid.
She didn't write, Mr. Stoker. I can't explain how I know I'll see her. It's just a feeling I have.
Truly? Oh, then I'm pleased for you. By the way, how's your supply of paraffin? If you need more, so the two of you can talk through the night.
I've got plenty, sir. Thank you so much. Somehow, I don't think she's coming here. She was always the pretty one, and I hear that London likes to hang on to the pretty ones. I think I'll be going to her.
Believe me, Maggie, London will hang on to you too. When do you leave?
Soon. That's my feeling. Ma'am always said to listen when your head and heart whisper to you.
And you've heard the whispers.
Aye.
Blackout. Scene 2. Lights rise on the sitting room. Stoker is seated at the writing desk, focused on a few open books and a map. Sir Walter stands behind him, looking over his shoulder. Wren is seated on the sofa, a leather case on his lap.
The maps of these areas are hardly up to the standards of our ordnance surveys, but according to Professor Bambury, every known superstition in the world coexists right here, in this horseshoe-shaped area of the Carpathian Mountains. Not just vampires, but demons and changelings, spirits and giants, and all manner of intricate rituals to protect them from them. This is where modern Christianity intersects with the last vestiges of fantasy that dominated and shaped the ancient world. If one considers the world as a wheel, well, this may be the hub from which most superstitions radiated outward to the west and east.
And to which they returned as they retreated from the growth of science and reason.
Yes, leaving fairies and leprechauns here, revenants and lycanthropes here, there, and dragons and giants just about everywhere.
But the old beliefs, the old fears are still strong among the peasantry in that region. What do you know of the people?
They're a mixture. Saxons from the south stood in with Valaks from the Dacians, Magyars in the west, Zalekelis from the east and north. From all I've read, it's almost as if time has stood still there. This is where Count Vampire will come from, where he will be at his most powerful.
His power fed by the superstitions of the primitives around him.
Yes.
Impressive work in so short a time, Stoker. You must be pleased.
I still have much digging to do. Much more to learn about the region and its history. Not just its topography and superstitions. I must devise a means by which Count Vampire comes to London to establish himself. Perhaps buying property. I'm considering a shipwreck, like the one I heard of that old seaman I met just before we crossed paths.
That would be more believable than having him fly to England as a bat.
I must sketch out my characters. Not just the Count, but the people he terrorizes. A noble family, perhaps. A group of friends, or young lovers.
Always a love story. You are the hopeless romantic.
And I must create his nemesis.
His nemesis? He has no need of a nemesis.
Well, someone must bring about his destruction, cut off the head of the snake.
My dear fellow, why must he be destroyed? Barney had one adventure after another for years.
With all due respect, Sir Walter, I'm not writing a penny dreadful. I am attempting something of a higher quality, perhaps even literature. Even if I dared let him survive, any publisher would demand someone to stop the evil itself.
No one is prepared for evil in real life. Does no one possess the sternest stuff to depict that?
Count Vampire's nemesis must be a learned man who sees what others do not.
Someone like that know-it-all Sherlock Holmes, who understands far more than he should be able to with the knowledge of a single lifetime, as opposed to your centuries-old vampire?
No, a foreigner.
It takes a foreigner to stop a foreigner. The Crown is going to love that idea.
A special foreigner. who has an understanding born of arcane knowledge that the British lack. The English mind believes in expertise and would accept a scholar to lead others to reality. Someone like Arminius Vanbury, with a different name, of course, but perhaps the same initials, A.V. Well, the A is easy. My own given name, Abraham. I shall have to put some thought to the V.
What a fantastical imagination you have.
Thank you. I'm sure my mother's smiling at this very moment.
Your mother?
Well, I was sickly as a child. Bedridden, actually. I didn't walk until I was 7.
My word, I would never have thought it. How did you...
I have no idea. My mother called it a miracle. I always thought of it as her reward for all the time she spent with me, telling me stories and folk tales, lifting my spirits with spirits and fairies and changelings. Every day she said I would get better. And I did. She made me the writer I am.
A dyed-in-the-wool romantic. You are fortunate to have, sir, a mother such as that. Certainly more fortunate than some of us.
Yes. To this day we are quite close.
Your mother aside, I do have another concern. Your title.
Count Vampire? Why?
Vampire is the German word for vampire, correct?
Yes.
Why tell your reader what the book is about with the title? For that matter, why would your character announce what he is when he comes to London? Wouldn't he be more subtle?
Well, the Ripper lacked subtlety.
He also never signed a deed or hung out a shingle saying, Jack the Ripper. Doubtless a name he was given by someone else. Look, if your man buys property and bloodless bodies begin to turn up in alleys nearby, someone is bound to say, let's talk to that vampire fellow up the road.
Well, what should I do for a name?
Why not a name from the Carpathian region from which he hails? One of your books there must have something about the people, at least the names of their rulers.
I think this one has names. An account of the principalities of Wallachia and Moldavia.
By William Wilkinson, Esquire, late British consul resident at Bucharest. That sounds promising.
Bearabestes, a warlike Dacian prince.
Count Bearabestes. No, that lacks something.
Decebalus, the king who unified the tribes.
Count Decebalus. It sounds as if one has a mouthful of cotton and beans.
What about Rado, who was the first tribal chieftain?
Count Rado. Not bad, but not compelling. Anything else?
Bogdan, he was a voivode, a prince. So were Mirza and Stephen the Great, son of Bogdan II.
Stephen the Vampire. Sounds like he could be a member of my club.
Voivode. Dracula. Dracula. There were 2 of them that fought against the Turks.
Really?
Yes, there's a footnote here. Dracula in the Wallachian language means devil.
Of course, devil. From the Greek, drakon, which means slit-eyed like a snake, or the serpent in the garden. It gives us the word dragon, and my surname, Drake. Have you no eye for heraldry, Stoker? A handful of prominent English families share the name Drake. The one thing they all have in common, on their various coats of arms, is a wyvern of one kind or another, a dragon. I would be more than honored than you can imagine if your vampire bore a name related to my own. What do you think, Wren? Should Stoker name his monster after me?
All right, then. Count Dracula.
I must confess I like the sound of that.
I do as well. If my book is a success, you'll want to tell your friends. But it will be quite some time before I am finished.
Take all the time we need. Just make this Dracula character as vile and unrepentant as you can.
You were right about the library here. A larger collection than I had expected. But if I am to make this fantastic idea at all believable, I need the libraries in London and the British Museum. where I can find more books on folklore. Better maps, accurate train schedules, weather reports, a layout of the village where I hope to start this story. Bistrita.
Train schedules and weather reports. Irving always said your grasp of the mundane details was the best he'd ever seen, and the most tiresome.
But, Sir Walter, mundane details are the gears that turn the world.
Indeed. Will you be cutting short your holiday to continue unearthing such details in London?
Hardly. I received word today my wife and son will be here at the start of next week. Then it will be at least another week before we return home.
You almost sound disappointed your family is joining you.
It's not that I'm disappointed.
But now that your mind has caught fire, it will be difficult to set aside what you have become.
I shall have to content myself with the books I found here. I can read at night while Florrie and Noel are asleep.
You can work through the night here as you do when you are at home.
The lamp in this room is more than sufficient.
Bugger the damn lamp, Stoker.
Sir Walter?
Have you any idea what you've accomplished today? Details and history to lay a foundation, the beginnings of an outline. A name for your principal character, a name that is powerful and symbolic, but enigmatic. You have marched to the edge of your own greatness.
I have.
Now you're willing to stop because your wife, who already sleeps alone, is coming here to sleep alone. And you wonder why I detest even the thought of marriage.
What would you have me do?
You could send word that she is not to come. Tell her you must return to London in a few days' time to work. And it would be inconsiderate of you to have to cut short their holiday.
But she knows my schedule. When I'm due back at the Lyceum.
Then tell her the truth, that you must conduct research for your next book. Surely she will understand that. Or does she tolerate your writing as long as it remains a pastime on the periphery and poses no threat to the financial security of the household?
That is not exactly how she would characterize
Then
it.
what would she say if I wanted to marry a writer I should have chosen Oscar Wilde?
Stoker rises and moves to the window, struggling to keep his emotions in check. Sir Walter clearly has struck a nerve.
Florrie finds Wilde disgusting. Always has. She once told me that she sensed something about him that disquieted her. She could never fully explain what it was.
Perhaps it was a recognition that Oscar could never be fully devoted to her.
What she saw in me, however, was steadiness, the reliability of a second-generation civil servant. Surprised her when I gave up the petty sessions clerkship for the Lyceum, but soon she realized it was not the job that brought order to me, but I who brought order to the job.
Whatever the job,
Yes.
writing she considers your hobby.
Yes.
Stoker, I see that she cannot, what Irving cannot. There is inside you a man at war with his longings in a world that sees him as a mere factotum. A man of order who wants, no, who needs outbursts of chaos and a surrender to desires unspoken. It may be that you spend so much time fulfilling your functions as head of a family that you have so little left for your most basic duty as a husband. If the chaste angel in your house could see the passion smoldering inside you, she would give you no rest. But she is happy with one child and blind to any joys you could bring her. Unmanned, you throw yourself into your work. But Irving demands so much of you that you can make no demands of him. There is no balance there. So you turn to your writing as an outlet. But it too is hardly sufficient to feed the hungers you carry. It is not enough that Whitman and Tennyson know you, or that Cain, Doyle, and Wilde know you. You want the world to know Bram Stoker, not as the manager of a renowned actor, but as the writer of lasting importance. Knowledge is stronger than memory. Unless you are known, you will not be remembered, and there will burn within you a rage so hot it threatens to consume you.
Sometimes I feel I should just give up writing altogether.
Rather than give up your deepest desire, perhaps you should abandon resistance to your basic instincts as regards other desires. Or abandon the regret that comes when you do surrender.
What do you mean?
Stoker, you are far from the only husband in this age of intemperate temperance who finds himself in a horse bed from time to time. Just don't punish yourself for it. Accept the natural order of things. Accept the release and the delight. Women exist for a reason. Social classes exist for a reason.
But
The rabble are cowards and fools for the most part, which is why in a civilized society there must always be classes above them to maintain order. But parallel to all classes and coming from any one of them is the exceptional man. He stands outside the very idea of class because every class is useful to him, from the rag picker to the horn-handed laborer to the insufferable prigs who wear their titles and superiority like chainmail. The exceptional man rejects the idea of shame because shame is a boulder on the path to a profound fulfillment beyond being remembered.
what kind of fulfillment?
Take what you want. Satisfy that appetite you would deny yourself. And when that one no longer fills you, satisfy the next that arises in its place. To taste the truest freedom, satisfy each craving without shame, but with all due caution. Imagine a young woman stands before you naked, arms open and inviting you into her embrace, her only wish to comfort you. She is no angel in your house, untouchable and implicitly mocking. She is no unsullied mother-wife whose demands supersede your own. You know that for a brief time this girl will deliver you from all the bile this world deposits inside you. Life is made of moments, not schedules. Give yourself such a moment from time to time. Surrender to such a moment. Now. Come, smother the parrot with me, and you will see how truly extraordinary you are.
Sir Walter deposits Stoker on the sofa. Wren rises and goes to the desk. Making room, he opens his leather case and removes a clear bottle of bright green liquid and 2 glasses. He uncaps the bottle and pours. Afterwards, he produces 2 absinthe spoons, places one over each glass, and opens a tin of sugar cubes. After placing a cube on each spoon, he opens a small flask and pours it over the sugar. He stirs each. Then he hands one glass to Stoker and the other to Sir Walter, who sits on the sofa. Stoker is shocked when Wren speaks in a harsh voice.
If there is nothing else, sir, I will retire.
Of course.
I thought, I mean...
Mr. Wren speaks only when I give him leave to do so. Some men are born to service, if not servitude. Wren does as he is told because his station renders him incapable of choosing his own path. But you, Stoker, are different. Better stock. Now put him out of your mind.
Stoker holds up his glass, hesitant to drink.
Sir Walter, I have never...
There is a first time for everything. And the first kiss of La Fée Verte is a moment you will never forget. Close your eyes as you drink. Close your eyes and think of the woman I just described. Imagine it is Maggie, supple and compliant. Maggie, stretched out on the bed in the next room, her voice a warm echo of home, her breasts a curt reminder of your youth, her lips an invitation to devour you and be devoured by you. Maggie, whose touch is a reassurance that this Irish lass knows how best to please an Irish gentleman in need. Cry havoc and let slip the green fairy.
Blackout. Scene 3. Lights rise on Stoker, seated at a small round table as if in a corner. Looking disheveled, he drinks from a large cup. Around him are chattering voices, the clinking of glasses, and the clutter of tableware. Bert Swallows enters, full pint glass in hand, and approaches the table. Stoker looks at him as if confused.
Here now, Mr. Stoker, innit? I remember your name because we got the same initials. B.S.
Yes. Oh, Mr. Swallows, from the churchyard.
You look a bit done in. You don't mind the observation. Too much to drink last night. I knows the signs.
Aye, but do you know the remedy?
Judging from your eyes, you're gonna need more coffee than that cup can hold. I wouldn't have took you for a hard-drinking man, sir.
Oh, I'm not. A pint or a brandy now and then, and 2 when somebody buys and I pay for seconds. Sherry when the occasion calls for it.
Wasn't brandy or sherry that put you in such a state. Unless you downed a whole cask yourself. You should stick to ale. Just enough any time to keep your lips wet and your water steady.
My friend said we were going to, smother the parrot.
Oh, the fairy. That powerful, sweet green piss that makes the walls look like they're melted. A long time since I tried that.
Yes.
Too strong for an old salt as myself. Put me up there in the churchyard for certain. Did you see her? I never did.
Oh,
The green fairy. The one what they named the drink for.
frankly, I can't recall seeing any fairies, green or otherwise. Oh, but my friend's voice is still in my head this morning.
It's nearly noon.
Is it? Oh, I suppose the time just got away from me. Oh, but I still hear him, booming, whispering at the same time.
What's he saying?
Damnable thing is, I don't really know. He's just there, wanting me to do something, telling me that I can't, but I have no idea what. Oh, maybe when this pounding behind my eyes stops.
Anything yet? A little porridge and poached eggs in your belly might help.
Oh, I don't think I can keep anything down. I tried a bit of bread and jam before I left my rooms, but before too long my stomach lurched and I went to the fish in the river on the way here.
Then the only remedy, sir, is time. And maybe a bit of distracting conversation, if you're up to it.
You're a good man, Mr. Swallows.
I still knows a tale or two. Might take your mind off your belly. Take the Barghast.
I'm afraid I already know a bit about the black dog, the hellhound, from the stories my mother told me.
Was your mum from hereabouts?
No, County Sligo, but she read me books from all over.
Plenty of hounds in hell. But since the Barghast holds the Yorkshire seat in the Devil's Own Parliament, it is a beast best described by a Yorkshireman.
I bow to your superior qualifications to tell the story.
Well, it ain't just one story. The Barghest is an old thing. A dog so big of breast that he looks like a cross between a wolf and a man. His forelegs are twice the size of his back ones, and the paws on him are almost like hands. His face, if you see it and live to tell the tale, is a face you'll swear you've seen on the streets hundreds of times, only not covered by fur.
Don't forget his damp malodorousness straight from the grave.
Oh, wasn't gonna mention that. I figured it wouldn't do for your belly. But there's enough else about the beast to ice your bones. If you hear its howl, ghostly wail, that's half church bell and half scream, it means somebody is gonna die, and their soul is gonna be dragged a hollering to hell, while the savaged body is left for others to find. If you see its face, close your eyes and turn away quick, for it sees inside you. If you catch a glimpse of it walking away from you, keep still, because you don't want it to turn and look at you for any length of time.
What happens if it does?
Oh, it just might decide that you belong in hell faster than the other soul it was hunting for.
Does it drag everybody to hell?
Everybody belongs in hell, to one degree or another. We're all sinners.
You'll get no argument from me.
Well then, your sins may be slight, and you may be on a path to the sky. But if there is a vacancy below, and this child of the night catches your eye...
Oh, very good, Mr. Swallows. Very good. Oh, that's the first real laugh I've had today.
Oh, that laugh tells me you're starting to feel better already, sir. The talking takes your mind off your troubles.
You're a wise man as well.
No, it ain't wisdom, it's practice. Knowing that what you took in, sooner or later, you must piss out.
I hope so.
And if the throbbing in your head don't stop then, it will when you finally keep something down. Oh, Sophie's coffee is staying where you put it. Let me get you a bit of her broth. My treat.
Stoker nods, and Swallows leaves the table as Stoker looks about. We hear the pub sounds again, punctuated by bursts of raucous laughter. Swallows returns and sets a bowl and spoon in front of Stoker, who samples some and pauses to see if it remains in his stomach. Swallows sits. Presently Stoker's hunger kicks in, and he begins to spoon it eagerly.
Oh, the way you're going at it, take comfort. It ain't Mother Pickle's broth.
Mother Pick... Oh, the woman who hated her son so much she poisoned him.
Maybe poisoned him. All we know for certain is Johnny hung himself.
Because he knew suicide would deny her the insurance money she wanted. But since we talked, I was wondering something. Why would he return home if he knew he hated him so much? Why wouldn't he seek the shelter with a friend or a shipmate?
As good a lad as could be without the proper mothering. But he didn't have many friends on land, and was too young to go off with some of the men aboard ship, if you catches the meaning.
But not too young to take up with a willing whore. No shortage of them. Or he could have jumped ship in another port. In any case, he must have hated her at least a bit. Why go home?
Even a dog beat so bad he bites everybody he passes will go home, right to the ones that hurt him. He lives with the pain because he's home.
But everything has a limit. Sooner or later, a whipped dog will sink its teeth into the hand that feeds him and rip it to shreds. Whatever he does to others before then is merely practice for the moment. The world may think him a Barghest, but in the end, he's interested in dragging only one soul to hell. Don't you think eventually Johnny Pickles would have killed his mother?
Aye, it's possible. A few of us might have helped him. Mr. Stoker, have you ever thought about writing your own stories?
Black. Scene 4. Lights rise on the sitting room, which is in disarray. Books and papers scattered about, desk chair overturned. Eyes closed and back straight, Sir Walter is seated in the armchair. His well-dressed appearance is stark contrast to the disorder. He sits perfectly still for several seconds. Then we hear a door opening, and his eyes snap open. Still unmoving, he looks towards the sound. Maggie enters and stops at the sight of him.
Sir Walter. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize Mr. Stoker would be having company this afternoon. I can come back later.
Mr. Stoker is not here, Maggie.
Not to be impertinent, sir, but if you want to wait...
I am not waiting for Mr. Stoker. At least not here at this moment. You began as usual upstairs, but today Mr. Wren sent you away. So you thought you would get an early start on Mr. Stoker's lodgings.
I didn't even know he could talk, sir. I mean...
Oh, that's all right, Maggie. Mr. Wren speaks only when I need him to do so.
Oh?
You thought you might get an extra half hour of reading before moving on to the rooms of the insufferable Mrs. Smith and those nattering virgins in her care.
Mrs. Smith likes things just so. But Miss Smith and Miss Stokes are very nice to me.
When they trouble themselves to notice you.
I don't know what you're meaning.
Surely you understand that neither of those horse-faced twits holds a candle to a girl lovely as you. All powdered and perfumed and stuffed into corsets, they stink of English righteousness.
Sir Walter, I'd best be going about my duties.
I'm afraid Mr. Stoker's rooms will take a bit more time today. It wouldn't do to leave now.
But if you're here and Mr. Stoker is out...
In a flash, Sir Walter seizes her and puts his mouth to her ear. Her gasp of terror is cut short. Eyelids fluttering, she slumps, only to be caught by him. Again, he puts his mouth to his ear, and she straightens and smiles.
That's better, my girl.
Hi, sir.
Before you tidy up these rooms, we shall have a brief talk.
Of course, sir.
In your present condition, you are incapable of lying to me, however uncomfortable my questions may seem. When you feel that discomfort and your heart begins to flutter, you will take a deep breath and all will be well. Do you understand?
I understand.
Good. Now, you do still fancy Mr. Stoker, do you not?
Oh, I do, sir.
He is a writer of books, which in your eyes makes him a great man.
Great. Gentle and kind.
Yet his wife and son are due to arrive soon.
I, sir?
Still, I told you, you will see him in London once you reunite with Lucy. You do believe me?
I do.
But you would so enjoy it if you could spend time with him before London. You would enjoy it if Mr. Stoker took you to London and helped you find Lucy.
I would.
He would not be like that lad back home, young and uncertain how to touch you, who made a mess of you with his fumbling and never drew blood to make you a woman. There is always such a lad for a girl like you. What was his name?
Donald.
Yes, Donald. Perhaps there was another who had a measure of greater success. But he was not enough, because you are here, ready to give yourself to Mr. Stoker.
Aye, sir.
And tonight you shall have your wish.
Oh, thank you, sir.
But not here. Not where Mrs. V can find you and send up a cry of scandal. I can almost hear that shrill fish-like voice of hers as we speak. If ever a woman deserved a blade across the throat. You conclude your duties each evening about 9, at which time you retire to your room in the garret.
Aye, sir.
Tonight, however, will be different.
Tonight.
Tonight will mark the end of your years of drudgery with Mrs. V. You will never see her again.
Never.
Tonight, instead of remaining in your room, you will come downstairs quietly and slip out the rear door. In the yard behind the house, you will wait for me.
Wait for you.
Yes. I will take you to Mr. Stoker and your new life.
Blackout. Scene 5. In complete darkness, we hear Sir Walter in a voiceover.
If my understanding of your habits is correct, dear Stoker, you are reading this note by lamplight, having just found it on your pillow as the house settles in for the night. As our exchanges must of necessity end with the arrival of your family next week, I thought it fitting we engage in one last match of intellects before you return to Irving your interminable Lyceum duties and your books. It is, of course, my hope that you will see fit to end your association with Irving and enter into a nimbler one with me. Our companionship would be highlighted by real adventure, not imagined melodrama in limelight. None of this implies you must abandon your literary ambitions. In truth, think of the books you could write as we traveled the globe in pursuit of our own exceptionalism. As a final inducement, I offer you a chance to fulfill one of your strongest desires. To accomplish it in the manner of your choosing, all you need do is follow these instructions.
Lights rise to half, or moonlight, on the cemetery bench from Act 1. Whitby is asleep, quite safe for night sounds and the rush of waters below. The wind grows stronger as the scene unfolds. On the bench, Maggie is seated, as if frozen. Beside her is Wren. Beside her is Sir Walter. A small shovel lies near the bench.
Your silence does not impress me, Wren. I know what you are thinking. You are comparing this to my last endeavor to recruit a kindred spirit.
Not exactly, sir. If you will recall, I was quite ill at the time.
I thought you would die, and I lost all sense of proportion while I sought your replacement. One way or the other, it would have been a sweet release for you, but a horror for me.
My symptoms included severe dysentery. Not so sweet as you believe.
It actually was a horror. Fortunately, you recovered just as my efforts fell apart.
I believe you would have found your way, Sir Walter. You always do.
But you were there to correct my course. I could not have managed the Thames business without you.
You managed a long time before you enlisted me to your service.
It was not the same then. I was less proficient, less enthusiastic, careless even in my choices.
But never deterred.
Some passions cannot be held at bay indefinitely. The outcome will be different this time, I can feel it. Mr. Stoker is older than Mr. Druitt and possessed of a greater focus, a more acute attention to detail, and an even deeper fury.
Otherwise, like the Thames, there is always the sea.
Do not despair, Wren. I am certain your retirement is close at hand. I have faith Stoker will come. I have seen how he looks at what we offer him.
He looks at her the one way, sir, but will he look at her the other?
That is the question upon which everything rests. Maggie,
Sir?
do you believe that Mr. Stoker will come to you
Aye, sir.
and take you to London?
Oh, aye, sir.
No one speaks as the wind rises. Stoker enters and draws near without them seeing him. He stops a short distance away for only a moment to gaze at the tableau, though Sir Walter blocks Maggie from view.
So, Walter, this is most irregular.
You see, Wren, faith. My dear fellow, I am so pleased you accepted my invitation.
It's cold up here, and the air feels as if it may rain soon. Can't we hash about whatever you wish to discuss inside? Most of the public houses are closed now, but if we keep our voices low so to avoid disturbing Mrs. Vasey... Maggie?
She cannot hear you, Stoker. She will respond only to my voice.
What have you done to her?
If you take a moment to think, you will know perfectly well what I've done to her. The final moves of our great game cannot be made indoors. I should have thought that would be obvious by now.
Great game? I thought you were offering me a position.
I am offering you a life on the edge of a razor, with more exhilaration than you can ever imagine. I have no need of you to manage my affairs. I am inviting you to be my companion in an unvoiced revolution that seeks to overturn the constraints of morality and the social order. No, we shan't topple the monarchy or lay waste to the Parliament, but we will surely shake the ground beneath them, even as we carry ourselves like gentlemen. All your life, you have followed the rules. School, career, family, their rules, imposed upon you by those who had no grasp of who you really are.
Well, it's not as if one has a choice in these matters.
One always has a choice. You did not walk for 7 years. 7 years.
I was ill.
Illness be damned. That was a choice. As if coming out of the womb you somehow knew the world would constrain you and took measures to delay that fate as long as possible. Paralysis was likely treated with bloodletting in those days. Was it the leeches brought you to your feet? Those primitive vampires your physicians chose to try? You see, everything is a matter of choice. Trinity College was a logical place for your schooling, but there you chose the unconventionality of Whitman and vigorously defended his work, despite the opposition of your peers. Your joining the civil service must have pleased your father, but before long you chose to do work outside, writing theatre reviews. Is it mere coincidence that soon after your father's death, your review of Hamlet brought you to Irving's attention? That soon after marrying a suitable woman, you left civil service to become Irving's manager? That soon after assuming the burdens of the Lyceum, you began to write in earnest? That soon after the birth of your child and withdrawal of your wife from your bed, you began to seek...
Enough!
Do you not see that at every turn you have been running away from the life imposed upon you? This is your opportunity to avenge yourself upon everything that unmans you. The family name, Irving and the misfits who surround him, the sterility of the petty sessions office, editors who will pound your books into conventional narratives to ensure sales. Flory, the ever untouchable Flory, here is your chance to live an unmasked life in spite of the mask you wear for the world. You are extraordinary, Stoker. Extraordinary. Dare to take it a step further, to be exceptional.
What would you have me do? What would you have me do?
First, I would have you take what you want. Do so without conscience and open wide the world of possibilities that awaits you. Maggie,
Hi, sir.
Mr. Stoker is here to take you to London.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Before you go, you are going to give yourself to him, freely and joyfully.
Aye, sir.
When you are finished, he will take you to London to be with Lucy.
Oh, that would be grand, sir.
He is behind you. Please stand and go to him.
Aye, sir.
Now embrace him as a lover, and let him know that you are his for the taking.
Maggie puts her arms around Stoker and rides against him as Sir Walter and Wren watch. She moans and her level of excitement seems to mount. Even as he tries to disengage, she pulls Stoker's head down for a lingering kiss.
Maggie, return to the bench now and lie on your back to await Mr. Stoker. When you feel his lips upon yours, you will open yourself to him and permit him to do anything he desires.
As Wren stands and moves away, Maggie does as Sir Walter has commanded.
What kind of man are you?
One seeking a fellow traveler on a path of a unique freedom.
The freedom to do what? To take advantage of young girls through some kind of opium or parlor trickery?
That is not generally what I do to girls of any age. Maggie is my gift to you.
Well, surely there are laws against such gifts.
Are you telling me you have no interest in her? You would not enjoy burying your John Thomas deep inside her?
Of course I would. It's just that...
What?
She should be willing, not...
Maggie,
Aye, sir.
would you like Mr. Stoker to lift your skirts, remove your knickers, and fuck his fill?
Aye, sir.
She is willing, Stoker.
You've made her this way. You and your mesmerism.
Hypnosis. Though she was drawn to you from the start, as were you to her. I simply removed the wall that prevented her letting you know. But the exceptional man must remove his own barriers.
Mr. Wren, please do something to stop this madness.
I cannot, sir. What Sir Walter wishes to do, he does without considering my approval.
If this be madness, Stoker, there is no more method to it than my giving you what you most desire. You've longed for the comforts of a nice Irish lass who admires you for who you are, not for your trivial efficiencies. Take her. If our nearness inhibits you, Wren and I will move to another part of the yard. Take her. Then we can discuss the next step toward exceptionalism. Would it help if I placed her in the proper class and ordered her to accept money for the act?
No!
So you will not.
Go from being Irving's dancing bear to yours? No.
That is unfortunate.
Sign, he produces from within his coat a long knife.
Sir Walter?
Unless the rage in your soul burns so hot, it eclipses your other desires, as mine often does.
God! Are you
Don't I hate that name? But I am who you think I am. The freest man in all of England, as well as all of France and Germany. Not that you'd have heard of any of my exploits on the continent. Mr. Wren has been indispensable in such matters. But he has his limits. I have long wanted a protégé, not an assistant, a partner who understands me because he shares my rage and indignation.
Holds out a knife to a now trembling Stoker.
Now you want me to kill?
I want you to be free from all that's pressed in upon you to make your life a clockwork harem.
You want me to kill Maggie?
She's just a girl, like her cousin Lucy, from a class of no consequence to a man like you.
But she has a life, as precious to her as mine is to me.
Would she have shown such regard for the preciousness of your life?
Of course! She's a decent girl who wishes harm upon no one.
Imagine for a moment you'd had your way with her without benefit of my intercession. What might have come of a single assignation? A girl who wanted more, who felt entitled to disrupt the respectability of your life with demands? Or a child you could never be sure was yours? It is girls like this who drive men like us into the arms of low-born carriers of filth and disease for a release that is natural and necessary. Does not the injustice of it all bring your blood to a boil? There is a wrath beneath the sadness you hide with your smile. Is there enough to make you my avid partner in this, the grandest catharsis of all?
I admit I have not been the happiest of men, but I have never...
The question is not whether you have, but whether you can. I see in you a man who can. After you listen to Irving prattling on with his feigned voice and flamboyant gestures, or reach for a wife who pulls away from you again, or pass coins into the grubby hand of a woman in an alley, what kind of man do you see in the mirror?
Sir Walter closes Stoker's fingers around the hilt and leads him towards the bench.
It helps if you crush the throat first. Once the heart stops, they don't bleed as much, less mess.
He places Stoker's free hand on Maggie's throat. Through it all, Stoker is shaking, even crying.
The first time is always an emotional affair, but she will not fight you in her current state. Now squeeze, then put the blade below her left ear and push before you draw it across her throat.
Stoker begins to squeeze Maggie to gag. Sir Walter releases Stoker's knife hand and steps back, pleased. Now free, Stoker lets go of Maggie and whirls on Sir Walter, plunging the knife into him. The men look at each other, faces close. Sir Walter is shocked, Stoker furious and tearful.
There was already a Limerick girl who comforted me when I needed her, and sometime just listened. But you cut out her heart!
Your rage. So right I was.
She let you into her room, and you spent the night carving her to pieces on my birthday! Let the last thing you hear be her name. Mary Jane!
Stoker gives a final push, withdraws the knife and lets Sir Walter slump to the ground, dead. Breathing hard and wiping his eyes, Stoker looks down at him. Then he remembers Wren and holds the knife towards him.
I will not hurt you, Mr. Stoker, unless you force me to.
But the present circumstances demand that you try. I just killed your employer. What happens when it comes to light that he was Jack the Ripper and you were his accomplice?
I never killed him, sir. I never helped Sir Walter kill anyone. He was my master. It was my duty to clean up after him, to make them disappear.
Oh, it matters little. You'll hang as quickly for helping him as you would for slashing their throats.
I was in hospital much of the time the ripple was afoot. I had no part in that business.
But you helped him in others, in France and Germany, and here in England. You helped him feed on the living, on girls like Maggie's cousin Lucy. Why?
It is not difficult to bend a man to your will if you have the means to send him to the gallows.
Then you have killed.
Being with him, pretending to be devoted to him, knowing what he was, all that was penance enough for any wrong I ever did. My crime was self-defense, like what you just did, but in the place where I was like to die for protecting myself. I will defend my life now as I did then.
He crouches to pick up a shovel and brandishes it.
I am just the body that carries the snake away. You cut off the head, the part with the fangs.
Ren, listen to me. We must...
No, you listen to me! I won't dance for the hangman. I was young and scared. I fled, changed my name. So Walter knew who I was and made me his slave in madness that made me want to kill again. To kill him. But he knew how to torture me. There are documents that damn me in his solicitor's safe to be opened in the event of his death.
Won't they be unsealed now?
Not if he disappears.
We simply can't sweep the 5th Baronet of Harlech Hall under a carpet.
Then you are prepared to stand trial for his murder.
Murder? The law demands a reckoning, and no jury will convict me for killing the Ripper.
How will you prove he was the Ripper? I'm lowborn, but I can give honest testimony I saw you stab my master. I can't say anything else without putting a rope around my own neck, so I won't. Maggie can't testify about what happened when she was asleep. I don't know if she can be woke up at all without Sir Walter.
He would have killed me, wouldn't he, if I hadn't gone along with him?
His last recruit ended up in the Thames with stones in his pockets. But you still can't claim self-defense or that you were protecting Maggie.
We seem to have reached an impasse, Mr. Wren. What do you suggest?
Sir Walter is known for his travels, for being more or less on permanent holiday. He carries quite a lot of money. There was a funeral here today, an old beggar woman, which means a fresh grave with loose dirt to top it and nothing to attract grave robbers. By the time he is missed, I will be in America, with a new name and enough to start over. Maybe even get a servant of my own.
What can I do to help?
Nothing, sir. Take the young lady for a stroll to clear her head, and leave me to my work.
Gestures with the shovel.
It has always been my job to carry this shovel.
Looks down at Maggie.
A kind girl. She gave me extra biscuits every time you had us for tea.
How am I to rouse her?
You could always kiss her.
Like Sleeping Beauty. But God knows what she will try to do to me when she wakes.
Then you might have to slap some sense into her to get her away from here. But whatever you've a mind to do, sir, do it now.
Sighing, Stoker bends to kiss Maggie. She moans, throwing her arms around his neck as he pulls away and tries to get her to sit up. Blackout. Scene 6. 3/4 on Stoker. Seated beside Irving, as we hear the voices of actors engaged in the first public stage reading of Dracula, Stoker is attentive, animated, and prideful. Irving appears horrified.
Quickly, the sun is almost down on the mountain tops. If darkness falls upon us, the hour lost. Quincy, you're bleeding. Were you hit?
I know the last valley of the fiend's gypsy, but I will not stop until this leg is fried off.
Then put your backs into all of you.
It's coming. Coming loose. There.
His eyes, they're opening. Well, his mind is still bound to yours.
that I have lived long enough to see this curse lifted.
Quincy! 7 years ago, we all went with the flames, and our happiness since is well worth the pain we endured. It is an added joy to Nina and me that our boy's birthday is the same day as that on which Quincy Morris died. His mother believes our brave friend's spirit passed to Nina. His bundle of names links together all our little band, but we who risked so much hunting Dracula called him Quincy. Our adventure remains our secret, but one day Professor Van Helsing says young Quincy will understand how some men so loved his mother that they did dare so much. For now, though, our child's sleep is innocent, his neck untouched by the breath of Eve.
A brief applause from one person. Lights rise on Stoker, who stands, moving down stage. He faces the audience for the next exchange.
Stoker, this is the book that Constable and Company will publish next week.
Yes, sir.
Stoker, at least Mr. Harker seemed pleased that you named a character after him.
Yes?
And Miss Craig's performance as your heroine was more than passable. At least Miss Terry will think so, mother's pride and all.
I think she was rather good, sir.
Whatever the case, Loveday tells me you were hoping I would enjoy the piece enough to take the lead in a full production.
It would be the greatest honor of my life.
Stoker, I understand full well why you staged the reading this morning, to register your script with the Lord Chamberlain's office and secure stage rights before the novel is published.
Yes, sir.
But the story! Somehow I think there is little danger it will be stolen for use as a play.
With all due respect, sir, it's no more fantastical than Jekyll and Hyde or Dorian Gray.
You are no Stevenson, my friend, and you are no Wilde. This evil Dracula person is repulsive and irredeemable. I certainly hope I was not the inspiration, as I overheard one of our stagehands suggest.
No, Sir Henry, you were not.
All that drinking of blood and that fellow eating flies and spiders. I'm afraid the very idea of your script is unsuitable for the stage at present, and likely will never be so.
Sir?
Dreadful, Stoker. Let us never speak of this again.
As Irving exits, Stoker hangs his head and begins to walk towards an exit. He stops as he comes face to face with Maggie, now older and better dressed.
Maggie, you're here.
Yes, Mr. Stoker. The ticket was at the door, just as your letter promised. I was surprised to hear from you after all of these years.
I was unsure you would come. The theater's hardly thought of as a fit place for a vicar's wife.
I nearly didn't, but not because of Robert. It was, well, I'm glad I did. How did you find me?
I hired Sherlock Holmes.
You're making fun of me.
No, his creator, Conan Doyle, is a friend of mine. He helped me trace you. I thought you, of all people, deserved to see this play.
There were only 2 others sitting back there with me.
Just 2? Those down front were connected to the Lyceum, our crew, other actors, the governor.
Then a great many people missed a fine story.
There is an uncomfortable silence. Finally, Maggie turns away. Stoker starts towards her, hand outstretched, but stops. He drops his arm.
I hope seeing this has not been too difficult for you.
Could have done without the idea of Mr. Wren eating flies. But I do feel a bit embarrassed when I think of the things I said to you that night. And the things I did.
It was 7 years ago. None of it was your fault.
I remember it all so clearly. Like it was yesterday. I knew what he had me saying and what he'd been doing. And even though I was excited and ashamed at the same time, I was helpless to stop myself. And when I realized who he was, I was terrified. But the feeling was so deep, I felt like I was choking, though I was breathing just fine.
Most unnerving, I'm sure.
I was never sure that you understood what I was trying to tell you that night, after you slapped me awake and took me down the steps. But watching how your poor Mina was in that trance, seeing all that was going on but unable to stop any of it. Now I know you heard what I said, every word. Makes me feel a little less hellbound.
Almost touching her, but stopping himself again. The pain of not touching her is apparent and profound.
Of all the souls I've met in my travels, Maggie, yours is among the least hellbound.
You sound like Robert. He's a good man, too. Kind and patient with the likes of me. A good vicar and a wonderful father.
You have children. Delightful. How many?
3. 2 sons from his late wife and a daughter with me. Her name is Lucy.
After your cousin.
And just like the first woman that Dracula kills in your story. Poor Mrs. V went to her own grave, not knowing what became of her daughter. I could never tell her, not without making trouble for the man who saved my life. Keeping that secret was like a pain unlike any other. Until I met Robert, and one night I told him the whole story in a fit of tears. In the 4 years we've been married, he's never breathed a word to another soul.
The only one I told was a friend of whom I dedicated the book. Even he couldn't come tonight.
You didn't tell your wife.
I couldn't without making trouble for the woman who saved my life. And gave me Nina.
I don't think I'll read your book, because the play shivered me enough. But I will be buying it, and I'll explain to my Lucy when she's old enough to understand how it came to be. She'll know 2 ways her Aunt Lucy is remembered, instead of being forgotten altogether. Thank you for that.
In a way, your cousin carries the banner for those whose names we will never know. The names we do know are just the few who will be remembered.
Like your friend, the one they call the Ripper's last victim, Miss Kelly.
Yes, Mary Jane.
I read about her last year. Whatever happened to the Ripper, they called the story. And it's still fresh enough in my mind that I noticed something about your play.
What?
Your friend was found on November 9th.
Sadly, the day after my birthday.
They killed Dracula on November 6th. That was you wishing you could have saved her life, wasn't it?
You're a very astute young woman, Maggie.
I saw you with that man that you called Sir Henry. Is that the fellow you called governor before?
Yes. Her Majesty knighted in the summer before last.
I wanted to come say congratulations, so I came over, but I stayed back when I heard that you and Sir were talking.
Well, in all matters to the theatre.
I heard what he said. It was a cruel and terrible thing to say, especially for a Sir. I think he's wrong. Dead wrong.
It's kind of you to say, but I'm afraid it was all wishful thinking on my part. I thought it was a role he could play, but you heard his final judgment. Dracula is dreadful. Sir Henry knows theatre better than any man alive. Whatever he says is best never spoken of again is soon forgotten. 20 years from now, no one will remember it. Or me. Maggie, I'm afraid I must get back to work. I have a June tour to organize, banking matters to settle, Sir Henry's correspondence to open, dinner invitations to get to the printer. I'm so glad to have seen you again. So glad you're well and I hope happy.
Hi, I am. And I'm glad to see you too, Mr. Stoker. Good luck with your book.
If this book is forgotten, and I am eulogized as nothing more than Sir Henry Irving's dour court jester, it's a comfort to know that at least one person enjoyed my play. Goodbye, Maggie. Thank you for being here.
For a time, Maggie is silent, looking after him.
I will remember you and your story, Mr. Stoker. Sir Governor and the rest be damned. I will remember it for as long as I live.
Blackout. End of play.
There are sheets that you may take over here. They explain a few things that if you'd read them beforehand, you'd know the twists and turns in the play. If you have any questions, I'll entertain questions for a couple minutes. Anybody have a question?
Questions, comments?
This is not my usual kind of play. I usually deal with social issues of one sort or another, but I've taught English for 45 years and Dracula is one of my favorite books. Okay, first questioner, honey.
I've asked you this before, but how were you able to describe the town of Whitby in so much detail?
When I did the first draft, I walked through Whitby on Google Earth on the computer, and since that time we've gotten the Oculus Quest virtual reality system, which takes Google Earth and you can actually stand there and look around and so forth. And I'd like to go to Whitby at some point, but and Whitby sells itself as the birthplace of Dracula. That's how they do their tourist trade, just like Salem does the witches. So yeah. There are a lot of, if you've read Dracula, there are a lot of Easter eggs in there, in the script. Enter freely and of your own will is in the novel. The blood is the life from Deuteronomy is in the novel. To be dead, truly dead, must be glorious in the novel. The reference to Sherlock Holmes having too much knowledge for a single lifetime in the Baldiston and Dean play that became Bela Lugosi's film, and the Frank Langella play revival and film for that. So there are a lot of little Easter eggs in the script. Was there a hand there? Yes.
All these authors that were mentioned in the play, were they actually from that same time period?
Yes. Florence Stoker was engaged to Oscar Wilde and Bram took her away. When I was doing the research in this, I said, oh really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. It's stuff that just seemed to fit.
And the actor who did the Jekyll and Hyde was a real person too.
There was Richard Mansfield. Fred Aberline, the inspector who interviewed Mansfield, was in charge of the Ripper case. Much as I love Dracula and it's one of my favorite books, I'm also a Ripperologist. When I was in London, I did the Jack the Ripper walking tour where they take you to the sites of the murders. And I read Dracula when I was a teenager, and I read my first book about Jack the Ripper, When London Walked in Terror, when I was a teenager. And I'm thinking the time period was such that there could be a relationship there. And later on, and I haven't been a teenager in well over 50 years, but later on I started thinking, well, Dracula maybe was inspired by Jack the Ripper. somewhat, because Jack the Ripper was 1888. And Montague John Druitt, one of the Ripper suspects, he was named as the Ripper in the first book I read about it, but I don't think he was. He was found in December after the murder of Mary Jane Kelly on the night of November 8th and 9th. Montague Druitt was found in the Thames with stones in his pockets a few weeks later in early December. So having Sir Walter kill him, and if you know anything about Vlad Tepes Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, Vlad is Romanian Russian for Walter, and Dracula, and again, the etymology, Draconis, slit-eyed, for dragons and serpents. Thank you for coming tonight. And
we want to thank you because we did your show and this one, and it really was an honor.
Yes, thank you.
but the honor was mine. Thank you.
A lot of people came back because they saw the show.
My friend Joan Alvarella, whose play
We did a one of her plays.
you did a play of hers some years ago. When she found out I was working with you, she sent me a note. You're going to love working with them. And she was right. Thank you all very much. Have a pleasant evening.
Come to our Christmas show, but he should be working by then.
And you're doing It's a Wonderful Life, the radio play. So you set it up so people see how radio plays were done. It's kind of cool.
One more announcement, Brandon, go ahead.
We're hosting a 24-hour project this Friday and Saturday. If you're interested in participating, it's all on our website, WDPlayhouse.com. If you want to come, it's free admittance. It's going to be Saturday the 5th at